Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching this out there on the World Wide Web. This is Jeremy Geelan for SYS-CON TV here at the 5th Cloud Expo. We're in New York City. We have with us Patrick Harding, CTO of Ping Identity. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you.
Ping Identity. We all know what ping usually means in an internet context, so why have you chosen that name and what is it you guys do?
There's a bit of a noise over the top here. So we actually solve the single sign-on problem for cloud and SaaS applications by allowing people to use their corporate directories or their hosted directories as the authentication source for accessing cloud and SaaS applications.
Okay, now that makes sense to me. I'm thinking you're quite in demand.
Yes, fortunately, business is good. We've got approaching 450 customers, all using us to access applications like Google Apps, Salesforce.com, SuccessFactors, applications like that. We're also starting to see some use cases where we're being used for what I'll call PaaS applications as well, where people are hosting their applications in Force.com or in the Google App Engine.
Now, what technology underlies what you're serving up? That's something that people are always asking me to ask. Come on, what's under the hood there?
So what's under the hood? Well, it wouldn't be much good in the cloud if it was all proprietary. So what we actually do is implement open standards, and those standards are things like SAML, the Security Assertion Markup Language, or WS Federation. Soon we'll be implementing standards like OpenID and OAuth. We also implement standards like WS Trust. These are the standards that you use to interact with these cloud applications, and our software acts as a sort of a bridge that translates what your directory or your databases or your corporate applications understand, such as SiteMinder or Kerberos or username password authentication, or even strong authentication like the RSA security tokens. Right. We translate that and allow you to use that infrastructure out of those cloud applications, and we do it by virtue of implementing SAML effectively.
And when you hear the discussions about cloud, security, cloud, you do hear standards. How do you, I'm not asking you to sex it up, but how do you really say to people, to nail the fact that, you know what, without standards, all bets are off?
So implementing the standards now has become almost an expectation. Now that Google and Salesforce.com are both implementing SAML, really that whole discussion about whether we should do SAML, that's gone. I mean, it's happening, it's out there. We have over...
Is SAML the correct how?
It is today, yes. I mean, that...
At least worst how, I don't know.
Yes, so at this point in time, definitely. I mean, standards are always maturing and changing. But if you were going to make a bet today, I would say SAML is the way to go. That's what these SaaS applications are all doing. We have 100 SaaS vendors who are customers of our software as well, who implement SAML. So, generally speaking, that security tends to be the reason people implement that. Fortunately, what we do, single sign-on, is one of the few security technologies that actually improves the user experience, in that you no longer have to have a password in every single SaaS application and cloud application. You can continue to use that password that you have on-premise with your directory, or even if you wanted to use the password you use for Google Apps as well. That can be the basis for you then accessing all these cloud applications.
Now, let's come at it also from the devil's advocacy point of view. I get the technical plus. Part of me wonders whether it's good, the old eggs in one basket thought.
So I would agree with you. That's why we're actually seeing an increase in the use of strong authentication, or stronger authentication. And for that, I'm talking about things like one-time passwords or digital certificates, or the adaptive authentication services that you see when you use online banking today, that you might see when you're doing retail banking, that were implemented for FFIEC guidelines. Now that you can pull back and collapse where your authentication happens in one place, you can start to basically build all sorts of controls in that one place.
Right. So that's the exact answer to my point. It might be all the eggs in one basket, but these are going to be the most finely tuned eggs, Jeremy. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's much harder to implement strong authentication across every single cloud and SaaS application. Much more expensive.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm glad I've got that answer, because that's been, as a user, that's been in my head, and now I see it's a no-brainer. Of course, I have a vested interest in this work.
I would hope so. The other thing is that not a lot of people realize it, that privileged users who are accessing cloud applications, these might be the admins who are setting up EC2 instances, or your Salesforce administrator. those guys today basically just have password access to these applications. That's even been more important to get strong authentication under your control before you let them in and start doing work in those cloud applications.
Yeah. This is a wonderful, I'm going to say minefield, that makes it sound negative. It's a wonderful field that you're in.
We like to think so. I think there's a lot of opportunity, definitely. We're seeing a lot more interest in what we do. We take it from single sign-on, and we also start to address API-based authentication as well. It's a little known fact that there's more requests that hit Salesforce APIs than do through the browser.
No, I've been hearing that this week, and that's been one of the running themes.
Yes, so we're looking at additional technologies and capabilities to provide sort of single sign-on and no passwords in the cloud, even if you're using APIs. We're also have implemented capabilities to automate and simplify the user provisioning problem as well, where today you don't want to have manual provisioning of user accounts by some administrator into all these cloud and SaaS applications. We have automated mechanisms where you can synchronize it from a corporate directory or from some database and synchronize those user identities out to those cloud applications as well.
See, it's all happening in the cloud. I know that you've got 1 million people waiting and you're going to try and educate them back at the Ping Identity booth. How should we find you on the web, Patrick?
We're there at www.pingidentity.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @pingcto. We've also got a blog up on our website as well. So we've got a lot of outbound information flowing. Look forward to having everybody come and take a look.
There you are. Call to action from Patrick Harding himself, CTO of Ping Identity. Thank you, sir, for speaking with us here in New York City, and thank you for joining us out there on the World Wide Web.